The Bannister sculpture and project began as an idea to commemorate an artist who holds a very special place in the history of American art, but who remains relatively unknown in Providence, despite the fact that his legacy, and the legacy of his wife Christiana, is visible throughout the city.
The project started as a spark in the eye and the heart of an artist, Gage Prentice. It really did.
From the moment I saw a photograph of Edward Bannister, I was just drawn to him. 2018, I was invited to see a show of his, and I was completely in awe.
They arrived in Providence, I believe, in 1867, and by that time, Edward Bannister was becoming fairly well known as an artist, and he knew there was a decent art community here. And so almost as soon as they got here, he rented a studio, she set up her hairdressers, and there you go.
Edward Bannister was a founding member of the Providence Art Club, and in 1876, his painting Under the Oaks won first prize at the Philadelphia Centennial, making him the first Black person to win a National Art Award in America.
I think one of the reasons why his painting Under the Oaks won a prize in the Philadelphia Centennial is because it spoke to a zeitgeist, like what was going on in the United States and these ideas of what life should be like after the Civil War. There's this move towards looking at our own backyard, kind of huddling around, supporting each other after a massive national trauma. So his work allows people a space to do that.
This is one of my failed hands, the interior of the hand. I made this part too big. It didn't, long story, this didn't work out. But this is still a very good example of what you get from here. And then add the wax on top of those things at the right thicknesses and the right textures, and keep the anatomy, but also the the softness of the flesh, and try to see the tendons where they're happening. I wanted him to be sketching his wife, Christiana Carteau Bannister, who's also a hero of Providence.
While Edward was making an impact with his art, Christiana was a highly successful entrepreneur and activist. She founded the Home for Aged Colored Women. Her hair salons provided income for the Bannisters and enabled Edward to pursue his art, and the two of them were leaders in the abolition movement. Edward was quoted as saying, "I'd be nothing without her."
We knew that there would be an educational component to this. So with that, we were engaged with TAPA, Trinity Academy for the Performing Arts, and they did a whole subject on Edward Mitchell Bannister and Christiana Carteau. We also set up a website so that people could go and they could learn more about Bannister.
Before this project, I'd only seen a couple of paintings. Along the way, I learned more about Christiana Bannister because I was named one of the first Rhode Island Monthly Christiana Bannister awardees. And what an honor to be named after someone who was not only an entrepreneur during a time when women didn't have the opportunity to vote, but she also was a community organizer. She also was a woman of service.
The sculpture was cast and assembled at Sincere Metalworks in Massachusetts, and on September 10th, 2023, it was unveiled in Market Square. The event was commemorated with music, speeches, and a presentation by the nationally recognized artist Joe Norman. In describing the importance of Bannister's work, Norman said, "He is, in effect, the father of African American art in America, and I will go as far as to say that he is our first superstar. And without Edward Mitchell Bannister, there is no Basquiat, there is no Joe Norman, there is no Henry O. Tanner, because Bannister was simply the first."
One of the things that are really fascinating to me is how Bannister was very much exposed to international influences, the Barbizon School, to a certain degree, even the Impressionists that had their first exhibition in Paris in 1874. and at the same time was someone who engaged with his immediate environment. In a way, he taught the people here who bought his art that the landscape of Rhode Island, up and down Narragansett Bay, is something that is worth painting and worth looking at.
One of the things that he does that's really unique is a little more improvisation. So he's taking these sketches that he makes out in nature, and he's bringing that spontaneity into his works. He lays on paint a little more thickly, which is called impasto. It also has like a drier brush. It's called scumbling, these scumbled bits of grasses and weeds, which is more like nature, where it's a little wild, it's a little unpredictable, it changes day to day.
What I love the most are his eyes. And I used to really think that there were marbles in his eyes. My other favorite part is the pencil. I really love that.
I'm intrigued by the location of this incredible sculpture because I imagine him sitting in a spot like this with his sketchbook. And the city of Providence was very vibrant and active in those days in the 1870s. And so you have to imagine here, Market House was surrounded by noise and trams and horse-drawn carriages, and the river was all covered up. And I imagine that he might have sat somewhere like in this spot and thought, okay, I need to get on my yacht and I need to go out there and have the bucolic landscapes as the counterpart of that active city life.
I see his impact very much so in the art club and all the things he was involved in there. For her legacy, I think the idea of a black woman, a biracial black woman, because she's partly Narragansett as well, being very entrepreneurial for a long period, but also very civic-minded in things she was doing for other members of the black community. And I think that's really important as well.
I like when a city is kind of haunted by the members of their past that can lead you to learn more about their story and their experience. And I could be biased, but nothing kind of ignites my curiosity more than seeing something that casts a shadow, you know, a true presence that's there. You can't ignore it.
I came down and sat with the sculpture a couple days ago, and I thought, as I sat there with him, about all of my ancestors. And I said, I hope you're proud. I hope that we continue and I continue to lift up this legacy and pour into Rhode Island for a better Rhode Island, a more inclusive Rhode Island that brings out the best in everyone.